Hey kids, Flexing Teacher Weber here. Hopefully you've had a good weekend. We're going to look at more algebra today. Now we're not going to solve any algebra equations today. We're going to look at a topic that will help us solve even more complex equations. That topic is called like terms. Now I want to use a little example to explain what like terms are. I'm going to read this example at the top of the page. It says, Josh has one apple. It should say apple, it says apples. And Ryan has 2 oranges. Mariah has 3 apples, and Kira has 4 oranges. Let x equal the apples and y equal the oranges. Write an algebra expression for this situation. Well, I'm going to start in a very general way here. It says Josh has one apple and apples are x. So I'm going to write down an x. And it says Ryan has 2 oranges. So I'm going to add on 2 y's. And it says Mariah has 3 apples. So I'm going to add on 3 x's for each of those apples. And then it says Kira has 4 oranges. Well, I'm going to add on 4 variables of y for those oranges. Now, what I want you to remember here is when we're dealing with variables, even though I don't see it, in front of each of those variables, there's a 1. We don't have to write it, but it's important to recognize that each of those variables represents an integer of positive 1. How do I know it's positive? Because every sign in front of each of these variables is positive. And when we're dealing with algebra, just like with integers, whatever sign is in front of that variable or integer belongs to that integer. And in this case, all of these are positive. Now, we're not going to write something like this every time. Is there a simpler way to write this expression? Well, absolutely. We can combine all our apples and we can combine all our oranges. But the key thing to remember about like terms is that you can't put your apples and oranges together. So we can only combine this until we have all our apples together and all our oranges together. So if I count my apples, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 apples, or 4 x's. So I can write that as 4x. And if I count my oranges, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can add on 6 oranges or 6y. But I can't make that any simpler. That's as simple as I can make that expression. What we have done here is we have combined like terms. And like terms are terms that have the same variable part. In this case, we combined all the x's and all the y's. Essentially, it's like adding and subtracting integers. Let's look at some examples that are a little more general and see if we can make some sense of this. I'm going to skip forward. Doink. Okay, this says simplify. And it's got some simple algebra expressions here. Now, key thing to remember, number 1, even though I don't see it, in front of each of those variables, there's a 1. So to combine those two like terms, I would say that is 2x. And in number 2, even though I don't see it, in front of each of those variables, there's a 1. If I combine those like terms, I have 3x. And then when I get to number 3, I have 2x, I have 3x. If I combine those, I have a total of 5x. So that's a very basic introduction to like terms. What I'm going to do next is do a new video so I don't have a video that's too long, and I will go into some more complicated ideas surrounding of like terms. Flexing Teacher Weber, out.